right. So now I am excited to kick off today's event, how to make a digital first work environment work for you, sponsored by Upstart. Upstart is a leading AI lending platform that partners with banks and credit unions to expand access to affordable credit. We're thrilled to be joined by our four leaders at Upstart, Siobhan, Liz, Melissa, and Jennifer. Would each of you like to take a minute to introduce yourselves, please? We'd love to hear what's going on in your life personally, professionally, and what you do in your role today at Upstart. Siobhan, we can start with you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am here in San Mateo, California. My name is Siobhan Lewis, and I am currently lead product and regulatory counsel at Upstart. I've been at the company for about 4 years now. I started doing commercial stuff, and now I do a lot of product counseling, focusing on our auto product, which includes refi, which is refinance, auto purchase through dealerships. And I also handle a lot of the licensing work that we do and regulatory matters. And in my personal life, I like to hike.
Very nice. All right. Liz, would you like to go?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Liz. Well, my name is Elizabeth Briones, but I go by Liz because everybody calls me Liz here at Upstart. So I decided let's just go with Liz. It's much shorter, easier to remember, right? So I am an associate operations manager here. I am actually proudly the running the Spanish department that is still fairly new here. But yeah, I've been here for a little bit over a year and a half. Was hired on to lead the Spanish initiative. And personally, I do have three beautiful daughters. My youngest one is 14. The other ones are adults. And one of my favorite things to do is I've been coaching volleyball for nearly 10 years now. And I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So yeah.
Amazing. Melissa, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm coming from a hotel in Seattle. I don't live in Seattle, but here I am. And I've been with Upstart for 3.5 years. And I've kind of bounced around a little bit. I worked with Liz getting the Spanish going on the engineering side. So I started out as a mid-level engineer, worked my way up to a senior software engineer, and now I've been promoted to an engineering manager. And so I'm dealing with more of the servicing side of loans. So once we actually have an applicant who has a funded loan and becomes a borrower, we take over then. And in my personal life, I've got a little girl. She's 9, and I just dropped her off at summer camp, which is why I'm here in Seattle. So lots of things, bouncing around, living life, being happy.
There you go. That's what it's all about. And then last but not least, Jennifer, please, we'd love an intro.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer DiTilio, and I'm the recruiting manager that supports Upstart's operations team. I've been with Upstart now for 2.5 years, and I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. My husband is an educator, and we have 2 kids, ages 10 and 7. And just as Melissa mentioned, summer camp is our way of life. We've taken on new jobs as chauffeurs this summer. It feels like we just drive them from place to place. So those are our new summer gigs. But I'm really happy to be here today.
Absolutely. We're happy to have you. So thank you all so much. I'm so excited about our discussion today. And for those just tuning in, I would like to remind everyone that we will be answering questions that come directly from all of you. So please submit your questions on the chat on the right of your screen, and we will do our best to respond to as many as we can. So let's jump right on into it here. At Fairy Godboss, we have a tradition with all of our webinar panelists. We believe that women can be at a disadvantage because many are not comfortable talking themselves up, and that we can only get better if we practice. So with that in mind, Can each of you share an accomplishment that you are particularly proud of with our audience? And Liz, I'd love for you to kick us off.
Absolutely. Thanks, Lashane. I was thinking about this last night as I was preparing my last, bit of preparation for all this, right? And I was thinking about that. My original answer was very short. It was very, oh yeah, I'm very proud of this. And I think as women, especially because we have a greater responsibility, sometimes we put a lot up on our shoulders. And in general, just what is expected of us women tends to be a lot higher. And so when we look at accomplishments, sometimes we undersell ourselves. And so taking that into consideration, I always look at, I'm in a good place, but I'm never in a great place because I look in front of me. I never look behind me. I always look at what I want to do and what I want to accomplish, but I never look at what I've done so far and what I've paved. So taking that into consideration, I really am proud of where I am now. I never in a million years thought I would be running something that I'm so passionate about. I was not born here. I was born in Mexico. So I've been in this industry, in the financial industry for almost 24 years. I just aged myself a little bit. That's okay. So I never thought that I would be in a position where my main job was to work with the Hispanic community, because it's always been a passion of mine. I started 20 something years ago as a teller, and I worked myself up to a manager. So I pretty much did every single position that you can possibly think of within the bank. And now I'm here in a fintech company running, a Spanish department that I, would have never thought I would have had, and working with people like Melissa, engineers and things of that sort. So that's to me is one of the greatest accomplishments, is just looking back to where I started and how I put myself through school while I had 3 kids. 100%. I was working full time as an assistant manager, and I was going to school because I really wanted to continue to better myself. And so that road is really what I am the most proud of.
Absolutely, and you should be. That is amazing. Jennifer, I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. That was a good one, Liz. It's a good one I have to come up from after that. That's awesome. So, I joined Upstart 6 weeks before the pandemic started. And that was my only time that I had to get to know the one recruiter that was on my team at the time. And over the past 2 years, my team has grown in size. We've hired over 1,200 Upstarters into the operations group. And I haven't worked side by side with any of these members of my team. And that's a really great accomplishment. But as I really thought about this, I think what I'm most proud of is that we've built a team of people who hold each other accountable. They support each other, and they care a great deal about what Upstart does. And I like to think that I had some impact on that. They're all amazing people to start with. So I already had a fantastic foundation, but I'm really proud of building a team in a fully remote environment that's as connected as ours.
Amazing. Siobhan, we'd love to hear about your accomplishments.
So as I mentioned before, when I first started at Upstart, I was doing mostly commercial work. And then as we grew, I was able to focus more on the product and regulatory side. My main product right now is auto. And we know that the fintech space in general is heavily male dominated. And now I'm in a subset of that in auto, which is also heavily male dominated. So here you have this woman of color come into the room, and most people don't know how to react because they don't know how to place me. And so I admit I had zero knowledge of the auto industry when I transitioned to this role, but I worked my butt off and learned everything I needed to learn. And when I went out there to interface with the dealerships or people at conferences, I'm now able to speak from a place of confidence. And so people are very, very hesitant to say certain things when I'm in the room, or they are very hesitant to show certain practices at their dealership if I'm in the room, because that accountability that I bring to the table, but also the fact that I was able to earn their respect so quickly. And now when I speak on auto topics, people are like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. Let's just do that and keep it moving. And I'm very proud that I was able to get myself in such a short period of time to where I am now. Upstarts make, what is it, speed is a habit, right? And I learned these things very quickly, and I'm very proud of myself for that.
Absolutely, and you should be. That is tremendous. Melissa, we would love to hear about your accomplishments.
Yay. Okay. So, kind of like what a lot of you are saying, maybe the trajectory of your career and how you got to where you are now. So, for me, I was a Spanish professor for 10 years. So that was my 20s. And I then decided that, we're in a new digital era, and everyone's carrying around these little supercomputers in their pockets. So I wanted to be a part of it. So I went to a coding boot camp, and I did this. I commuted. I was living in San Diego, and I commuted every weekend and would spend 20 hours a week on the weekend just at this boot camp. No coding experience prior. And I had a baby at the time. So I'd work during the week, go on the weekends up to LA and spend the weekend doing the boot camp. And I got the first job I interviewed for 3 weeks before graduating from the boot camp. And so all of a sudden I'm thrust into being a software engineer. And that was maybe 7 years ago. And I've since, been thrust up into Silicon Valley, where you want to work as an engineer, and worked my way up from a junior to a mid-level to a senior, and then promoted to an engineering manager. And all the while, I've been homeschooling my daughter and just being a single mom. And so it feels really good to be able to hold your own and meet all your goals, I guess, for your career and also your personal life, and then be making an impact at such an awesome company.
Absolutely. All four of these answers were so tremendous and very inspiring. I know everyone in the audience is getting the warm fuzzies, because I sure am. We are here today, right, to talk about how to make a digital first work environment work for you. And, I'd love to hear in your own words from some of you, what is a digital first work environment? Like, can you share what your team is working and working environment look like today? Liz, I'd love for you to kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a loaded question, isn't it? Especially because digital first has every single day it changes, right? What is it like? Even within our company, right? It has changed a lot. The pandemic threw everybody into this digital first environment. And since then, a lot of companies have adopted it to be part of their regular practice now, right? This goes from like being in the living room to me being in a space. If you're wondering, am I in an office? This is actually used to be my husband's man cave, we'll call it, and I took it over. So this is kind of what digital first has done to the majority of us, right? That you're in a broom closet, like I've heard people say. So really, it really has changed into what digital first means. It just pretty much means that you are not working from a designated office, right? Here, Melissa's in a hotel in, Seattle, things of that sort. So really, that's to me, that's what it has turned into. It's just you're not in a designated office space, right? You pretty much wherever you can take your laptop with you, you connect to a network. That's your digital first place to be in. For me, I realized I didn't say where I'm from. I live in Oakland, California. So I am out of the San Mateo office here of Upstart. And so 90% of my team is out of Ohio. So I only have 3 employees that report to me that are here in California. The rest of them are 3 hours ahead of me all the time. So for me, it looks a little bit challenging, right? Because even if I wanted to meet with them, I've made the trip a couple of months ago to go see my team, and it was wonderful. And so I'm going back in August again. But that's, with this environment, really, that's what it looks like for me on a regular basis. We're all connected 100% online. And the big portion of our team is 3 hours ahead, right? If we're all in California, which can all kind of be a little bit of a challenge in itself. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it looks like. I'm glued to my phone and my my computer all day, to make sure that I am connected with my team as much as I can, especially with this hour difference that that we have.
Absolutely. Thanks, Liz. Jennifer, I'd love to get your insights on this.
Sure. So I have a team of 5 recruiters that report to me. And at one point in the last year, I had an additional 5 contract recruiters supporting my team as well. 3 of us are based in Columbus, Ohio, but the rest live around the country. So for me, digital first is I work from home most days, but go into the office for team events and meetings, the occasional drop in. I personally feel lucky that I work in a city where we have a home office, as it really allows me the option to work in office with the flexibility of being remote the majority of the time.
Absolutely. Perfect. Yeah. And then Melissa, we'd love to get your insights.
Yeah, I am, kind of like what Liz said, my office I carry around with me. And so it's my laptop. My AirPods are always in my purse, because you never know when you're gonna need that. You have to be ready for a meeting. So it's best to just carry it all around with you. But what's nice though is whenever I don't have a meeting, but I'm still in working hours, I just make sure I have my phone with me and I can always be responding to Slack, because Slack is what we use for our, I mean, we call it asynchronous communication, but it is pretty synchronous pretty often. So we're on Slack, and if you're tuned into Slack, that's kind of what you need. So it's actually quite nice. You've got your meetings, but then the rest of the day opens up, for whatever flexibility you want. Some people like to have their full working hours all in one go to kind of set up those boundaries, or maybe that's just how it works better for their life. Some of us are like, okay, great. So then I can work when I've got the meetings. When I don't have a meeting, I can take some time to go do something else and then come back at night and work. And I'll do that sometimes. That's nice because then you get to go and do whatever appointments you need to during the day, or activities, sports, things like that. Um, but yeah, I took full advantage of the remote first. I was in the office when shutdown happened. And once I heard we're going digital first, I said, I'm going to Hawaii. So that's where I live now. And so I live in Hawaii. It's wonderful. I do live in a remote area. So my fiance and I actually put up a 40-foot tower on our property so that we could get some good internet. We were just like going for it. And so it's great, but we travel around because we still have ties into the Bay Area where we were working. And so we're just traveling. We do a triangle. And so he has a house in Lake Tahoe too. So on a plane, wherever we are, it's okay. I can work. And like today, I dropped my daughter off at camp she's going to go for a week. I get to drop her. I come back. I'm going to work a full day at the hotel. Then I'm going to get on a plane and go to the Bay Area, and then continue life that way. But with my team of engineers, we've got people on the East Coast, people in Texas, people in Chicago, people in the Bay Area, me in Hawaii. And we just kind of establish our working hours, and you put it in your calendar. And so you know whenever you can schedule someone during that block. And so everyone's happy because that's when their meetings are. And it all works out. Like I said, we've got Slack, and I feel really, really in touch with the people that I work with, probably more so than in the office, because you can easily just jump on a Zoom and you're all together. So that's kind of a brief introduction to my work life remotely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I was stuck on the Hawaii part. Wow. Fantastic. What a life. All right. So, question for you guys. How have you adopted and embraced change in the workplace? Like, what is one thing you love about working in a digital first environment? Siobhan, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So for me, the digital first was a huge change. I actually loved being in our office. Upstart has an amazing office in San Mateo with floor to ceiling windows. And like most tech companies, right, food is in the kitchen, and I'm a huge snacker. But more so, I love the connections. When you are a lawyer at a company, you are often seen as the naysayer, but I was able to build personal connections with engineers, with IT, with people in operations, and they know me as a person. So when I have to come to them with the difficult questions lawyers sometimes ask, they know that I'm not coming from a place of pointing a finger. When you're digital first, you don't have that same connection. But one thing that I have loved about being digital first is there are so many more people we were able to hire that are great at their jobs that are not in San Mateo or California. And that would not have happened had we not been digital first. So while it was an adjustment to me to lose the in-person connections that I had, I'm actually very pleased with the connections I'm able to make setting up virtual teas with people. Tea isn't sipping it. Virtual tea with people that I never would have known if Upstart had not gone digital first.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Liz, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, change is inevitable, right? Wherever you are, there's always going to be change, especially, since we've had this wonderful thing called COVID hit, right? Change has happened every single day. Every day that we wake up, there's something new, something's going on. Now we need masks. Now we don't need masks. Now people can go into offices. People can't go into offices. It's kind of how it's been, right, for the last like 3 years. So I've learned to accept change because in reality, if you look at change, is change means progress a lot of the times, right? You make changes as a company to, as Siobhan said, to be able to open the door for other individuals that you normally wouldn't have had access to. We have an office here in San Mateo, we have an office in Ohio, so we were limited to the amount of people that we can hire. So it has opened up the door to be able to expand the teams that we currently have. And so for me, I've learned to just kind of go with the flow. It's part of what life is. Life
Mhm.
is change in your personal life, in your work life. However you look at it, you're always going to see change. Change is difficult. I'm not saying it's not. Nobody ever just says, all right, we're changing that, I'm good with it, right? There's a transition period. But I've just learned to accept it and make the best of it. And if I have to restart that plan that I had because of these new changes, all right, well, let's just regroup and redo it, right? Um, for me, I have really loved the digital first for many reasons, right? So one of them is just like really in reality, the flexibility of it, right? If we think about the amount of flexibility that we have, I, you know, we just get up, we make our coffee, prep our lunch, and like do our things here as we do it. Like in between, I can put a load of clothes to wash. These are the things that you don't think about, right? But before, you would step out the house at 6, 5 o'clock in the morning, right? Bay Area traffic's wonderful. Um, so you wouldn't be back until 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Again, traffic, right?
Mhm.
And so the flexibility that you have now to be able to schedule appointments or step out or do things, or, my daughter's 14, she plays volleyball, of course, that would be inevitable, right? Can't be a coach and her not play, right? But I'm able to put her into camps, and then normally it would be difficult because these camps are not always like all day. And so with being here, I mean, I have that flexibility to be able to say, okay, let me not schedule a bunch of meetings at this time, so I have the option to go and pick her up and drop her off. Those are things that if it wasn't due to digital first, we wouldn't be able to do. And so to me, that's like one of the biggest things that you're able to do. And like Melissa says, like I've taken vacations before, and like instead of taking a full day, like I do half a day of travel, and the rest of the day I'm in front of a lakefront property still working, which is great, right? Like you get both of the best worlds. So those are great things that you're able to take advantage of, to be able to move around and go to different places, go to beach towns. I've done it in Lake Tahoe, to just change the scenery and have a little bit of a like a little bit of a refresher, but you're still working. It's great.
Absolutely, it is great. I love it myself. Jennifer, any advice on how to improve your work environment, whether digital or in person?
Sure. So as I think about this I think the physical environment is really important to think about when that's what you're doing day to day, right? So I think if at all possible, you have to be able to create your own space. So, at the start of the pandemic, I was a nomad, but like in my own home, I worked from random spots. It was the kitchen, it was the dining room, wherever I could find a spot. And then, after 3 or 4 months, I realized we're in this for the long haul. So, I'm very lucky in that I have a very small space in my house that I've converted into my own little mini office. I mean, it's mini, but it's my space, right? So I painted the walls, I got artwork, I've got pictures up, and it's my spot. My family knows that. Now, it does not totally stop my kids from walking in during meetings. That's just I think we all know that's just going to happen, right? But the door will be closed. But it's really helped me with my own mental state when I'm working remotely. But honestly, I don't think it's much different from when you're working in the office in some ways. Whether you work at a desk or you have a cubicle or you have an office, bringing in personal items to make your space really makes a big difference. So that to me has really, it kind of shifted my mindset, my mindset, like I said, 3 or 4 months into working remotely.
Amazing, amazing. Melissa, we'd love to get your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I think that your working space is very important. And I've kind of adapted my working space as I've realized, like Jennifer is saying, that we're here now. This is the long, we're in here for the long haul. And so I realized that I am much happier whenever I'm working outside. So I've tried to create an area where I can be working outside, because one of the things I really didn't like about the office life was being cooped up, being stuck inside an air conditioned building, and not feeling like I'm connected with the earth or anything, And so might as well reap that benefit. So I make sure that I have a nice space outside where I can be in the shade and not have a bunch of noise. And but then also, besides space, I think the schedule is important. So it's easy to be online and available all day long, all of the waking hours. And that's not good for you long term. You can only do that so long before you're super stressed out and then you hate your life and you want to take a vacation. So I make sure that at a certain hour every day, I shut off Slack communications, and I do not log into my email. And unless I'm on call, which is not very often, then I don't touch it until the next day. I think it's really important to set those boundaries, or else we're going to feel like we're just tethered to work 24 hours a day, and that doesn't last for very long with being a happy person and being able to manage everything. You can do that for a little bit, then it's going to start eating away at you, and then you're not going to be happy about what you're doing at your job. You're not going to like your job. So it's better for your company and for yourself to set those boundaries.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So, Siobhan, I'd love to hear from you on this one here. What do you do to make the most of your workday and maximize productivity?
Yeah, so this is actually a question I love because I am all about efficiency, which again, like Upstart's values kind of speak to this as well. But I have lists, and I have to just an actual book of lists that I keep, one list a day, so that I make sure that I get through all of my tasks, which is important to me. And then I also make sure that I take breaks during the day, because burnout is real. Like Melissa was saying, if you are working from home, you have the tendency to overwork and always be available. So I make sure that I take my breaks when I need to. I have my working hours up on my calendar so people don't bother me outside of that. And then I just have a schedule for how I want my day to go. It doesn't always stay that way, but at least if I have a task list and a plan at the end of the day, it's easy for me to identify what I did not accomplish. And then that moves to the top of my task list for the next day.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks a lot. All right. So, at this point, Many people have been working remotely for over 2 years. And while video meetings and remote work have proved to be effective, we know that many are missing the connections and the ability to make themselves and their work known. So, what advice do you have on how to make themselves and their work visible in this digital first work environment? And Melissa, I'd love for you to kick us off on this one.
Yeah, there's two parts of that when I think about it. Making yourself known in the company and then your work visible. And they can overlap, but they don't necessarily have to. So at Upstart, we have a lot of opportunities to be a part of different groups, guilds, vertical teams, social activities and teams. We have a bunch of different things. It's kind of like a college campus. You can belong to all these different clubs and activities. And one way to connect with other people and make yourself known and make yourself a presence is to join some of these extracurricular groups. And even some of these extracurricular groups that you volunteer for are very work focused, where you're jumping in to maybe help part of the product or to help mentor new engineers coming in and to be a part of a new interview program that we're trying out. And so I like to always be a part of at least one of those at a time. And it helps me make connections with more senior level people in the organization, as well as new people coming in. And that's one of the ways that I keep myself relevant and show my face around, is by being part of some of these groups. And, we're with getting my work known and seen. I don't think for me, I've not seen much of a difference, whether it's pre-remote work life or where we are now with remote work. I always make sure that I jump at any opportunity to present my work. We at Upstart, we have these engineering fortnightly meetings. So every couple of weeks, all engineers get in and we have an hour where we do presentations and this and that. And any chance that I get, even if we were at the office before we went remote, I would always volunteer to present my work and just kind of, even though it makes me very nervous to do so, it doesn't matter. I just volunteer myself and I do it and I present, and I'm very happy after that. And then people start to look at me for the area that I presented as a voice of expertise in that area. And then so people will contact me later, and it's just a great opportunity to really showcase your work and what you're doing and make those connections.
Yeah, absolutely. Liz, do you have any opinions on this one?
Yeah, sorry, I was finding my mouse. Yeah, I mean, really, in this kind of, you have to really make yourself known. Even if you're a person that really kind of maybe stands in the shadows a lot of times, in this digital first environment, you do have to ask a lot. You have to, ask, what can I help with? Ask, hey, what else can I do? Even if your manager's not taking maybe that initiative, you really have to kind of put yourself out there, because this is one of the disadvantages that we have to not be in front of people all the time, right? When you're with people, they can see your work, they can see it, like you're right there, you're able to like walk over to that desk and talk to each other and partner up. You lose that. And you have to really kind of step outside of your comfort zone a little bit and say, normally I don't like to speak about myself or what I'm good at, but in a digital first environment, you almost have to, because you have to, voice yourself and say, I want to do this, or what can I help with, or hey, can I be involved in that, or can I learn more about that? Is the only way that you're able to you're gonna be able to get yourself out there.
Absolutely agreed. Thank you for that, Liz. Oh, great. So it looks like we're getting some questions in from the audience. Let's take a look at some of these. Okay, so someone is asking, and this is a good one. Do any of you deal with guilt working remotely? And if so, how do you overcome that? I'll leave the floor open to anyone who wants to answer it.
I don't mind taking this one. When I first started working remotely, I did feel a little bit of guilt in the sense of that I'm very present in the office and I'm always available for stuff. And then working from home, if I was in the kitchen making tea or something, people couldn't see me doing that, even though I do it in the office. So they didn't know why I wasn't responding. And I felt guilty for not being as responsive in that home environment. I got over that because the expectation should not be that you are available all the time. I think that people now realize that people are working and that they may not get to you immediately, but that doesn't mean that they're not working. It means that they're doing something else. And we just have to be okay with that. So Upstart has created a culture around not feeling guilt for not always being present. And I think that if your office doesn't have that, that's a conversation I would start first with your manager, because it has to be normalized that people don't have to be available all the time. And that's just the reality of what it means to not be present in an office all the time.
Absolutely. I love that. Thanks so much, Siobhan. So another audience member asked, and again, we'll get some responses from a couple of you guys on this one. Any advice on how to feel more connected to and build culture with your virtual colleagues? How have you been able to build relationships in today's dispersed work environment? I think, Jennifer, I'd love to hear from you first.
Yeah, this is something I'm really passionate about. So thank you for that question. For me, it's all about one-on-one time. So, while virtual team events can be fun, I personally find it really hard to connect with people when there's like 30 people on a Zoom. So, for me and my team, we have weekly one-on-ones, and then we have a full team meeting weekly as well. Sometimes they're short, we don't need the full time. Sometimes they go long, but I always make sure that we have an agenda so we can discuss their work related questions. But more importantly, for me, we always start on a personal note. So, I want to know how they're doing, what's new, what's hard. Sometimes I find our one-on-ones will end up being about everything not work related, right? But it's okay because they've already completed their agenda. So I already have some insight into what's happening in their work life, but they need that time one-on-one with me. So, that has been really important for me. Also, whenever someone joins the greater recruiting team, I always set aside, 20 minutes just to meet with them one-on-one. And I found that this has really made a big difference because then you get that personal connection with someone. And then when you're in that bigger group, space, you can find that person that you've connected with, right? You already have that personal connection. So that has made a really big difference for me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Liz, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a really easy tip, and it's worked wonders for me. I think everybody that has a conversation with me over Slack thinks it's hilarious. And because I make it a point, before I ask anybody for anything, I say hi. Hey, how's it going? Or if it's like Monday, it's like happy Monday, or send like, dumb little like emojis consistently. No matter how busy I am, no matter how important it is what I'm about to send you, I will always start it with something like that. I have deleted like full blown paragraphs because I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to say hi. I'm just jumping into what I need. That has made a huge difference. Everybody like knows me as that person, so it's expected for me now to like be super friendly. I'm like that in person, and so I was losing that connection in the digital first environment, right? I do the same thing in Zoom meetings. I always have my camera on. I always have fun backgrounds. I unmute myself. I will say hello to people. I will ask them how's their day, how's everything going, how's the weather in Ohio, because I always know that it's terrible all the time. So, it's funny, it's hilarious. And then everybody's like, "Dear California weather." Yeah, no, sorry guys. Right. But that's just the way that I've been able to connect and continue that kind of personality that I have outside of the digital first and kind of incorporate it into not just with my team. And I do that even in like 300 people, Zoom meetings. It doesn't matter if it's a small or a big meeting, I will do it. I don't mind. it's totally okay. We spent 3 or 4 minutes just chatting about the weather. But it's made a huge difference to just be able to make connections with people.
Absolutely. It's the little things that count. Love it. So
Can I throw in one thing?
uh,
I have to second what Liz said. You have to have your camera on. You have to have your camera on. It's so much harder to make. I mean, sometimes you won't because you're doing something, you're in the car or whatever. You just got out of bed and you're in your pajamas and you didn't get ready yet. But if you have your camera on, it's so much easier to make that connection with people. So, camera.
definitely. So in that vein, how do you manage communication, collaborate effectively, and maintain feedback with your team? Siobhan, you want to field this one?
Yeah, so I've been a manager now for a little over a year, and then I am also on a team, so I am managed. And I think one of the key things for me about collaborating effectively is making clever use of meetings. Like I do not schedule a meeting unless it's something we absolutely need to discuss that cannot be handled by an email. I know that's a meme, but it is really a thing that I try to do because you are oftentimes expected to be on camera a lot. And I know some people like it, but not everybody does. And it can be a lot of fatigue if you're in meetings back to back to back to back all the time. And so I try not to overwhelm my team with meetings. I give feedback in real time over Slack. Like Melissa said, we use Slack a lot at Upstart. And so people know very quickly if I need something from them or they can get something from me very quickly. And then I also do schedule one-on-ones as often as possible, kind of to Jennifer's point, like just having that in-person connection. Any meeting you have with me has an agenda and it has clear action items at the end of that meeting, unless it's a social thing. So those are some of the things that I do to communicate effectively is just make sure we have agendas, make sure I'm using the right form of communication, and then making sure I make people feel comfortable that they can show up however they want to in order for us to have a productive time together.
Fantastic. I love it. Melissa, any insights on this one?
Yeah, so one thing that we tend to overdo is now that we're in the remote lifestyle, we tend to overschedule meetings. So I like what Siobhan is saying, because then that takes away from our ability to actually get our action items done. We need some heads down time to be able to work. If we're always in meetings, that makes it a little bit hard and we become overburdened. And I think it's important to kind of scale back and think about, okay, do we really need to have this meeting? And then manage the meeting well. I like what she was saying with have clear action items. I like meetings to be we're getting something done. There's a purpose and there was an accomplishment there, or at least follow-up items.
Absolutely. Oh, look at that. Another question from the audience. So someone is asking about managing priorities and tasks. They spend most of their day responding to emails and don't have enough hours to tackle the big projects. So any advice on how to manage time and priorities? Like how do you turn it off and avoid working those late hours? This is for anyone.
I'll take this one. This is one that I've spent a lot of time thinking about. So first of all, my days are ruled by my calendar. If it's not in the calendar, it's not going to happen. And I really make an effort to focus on a few things to keep my day running smoothly, including time blocking, which is something that I know everyone's heard about, but I think that there's really effective ways to time block. And so my time blocks will be very specific. So it may be meetings, but it may be I'm answering a set of emails specifically for this 30-minute block, and that is it, right? Then I'm moving on to my next task. But I've also really learned to add in my downtime. So taking a break, eating lunch, when I'm exercising. I have to block those things in and keep really focused on it, because as that the person mentioned, otherwise I would just be answering emails all day long. So it's all about how I block off my calendar. But the other thing I will really emphasize is really protecting my time. So I would say there was a point in time where people would schedule over things, or they would schedule during my off hours, because a lot of the people I work with are on the West Coast, but I'm on East Coast. And it really took time and a lot of practice, but I learned to say no and to stick with it. And when I would say, no, this is scheduled at 6 p.m. my time, I can't make that happen, I'm busy, I often found that people were like, oh, I'm so sorry, let me reschedule, or it's not necessary for you to join. But they don't know that unless I say something. So I found that people were really receptive once I actually started speaking up for myself, and again, really protecting my time. And by keeping a tight schedule, it's really allowed me to maximize my productivity during the workday and then keep my personal time for myself.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jen.
Sure.
So, having some employees in the office and some at home, if done right, can give you the benefits of flexibility with the strengths of working in the same room. But it also risks complicating some of the work that's been done and creating more inclusive workplaces. It also risks companies giving preferred treatment to those in their immediate vicinity. So, as a leader, how are you working to prevent proximity bias among teams that are spread across different work environments and locations? Liz, I'd love to hear from you on this one.
Absolutely. So the one thing that I can tell you is really get to know who you're working with, who's in your team, and try to figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are. Because with those things in mind, I've taken the time to really get to know my team. I'm able to place people into, whatever it is that we have going on, whatever projects, based off of skill and expertise, not proximity, right? Sometimes I'll make it a point to pick people from opposite, right? Somebody that's in California and somebody that is in Ohio, because that's going to teach them two different things. It's going to teach them that they have a separation that's 3 hours. They'll make them work in a different way. They have to really like work with each other in a very specific manner. But I try to pick different people all the time. So we have daily huddles, we have meetings, we have coaching sessions. There's all these different things that are like norms within any company, right? But I never pick the same people. Even if somebody is like struggling with that, I pair them with somebody who's really good at it and say, hey, you're going to lead the next huddle. Hey, you're going to lead the next training session. Hey, let's work with each other and try to figure this out, to try to make sure that I'm not, being biased to when I go into the office. I might see two or three of my employees on a regular basis, but I don't see the ones in Ohio. But yeah, take a little time to get to know each person and get to know, what they're good at, what their passion is, what they want to do, because then you're able to put people into those things, not just based off of your opinion.
Absolutely. Jennifer, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so in my situation, everyone on my team is remote. However, there are members of my team that are based in the city where we have an office, and others that are not. I'm really conscious about ensuring that if we have in-person team events, that we rotate locations, we make sure the timing works for the majority of people, and that there's always a video option. But I am sure others can relate to this. It's something that I think we're all trying to get better at in including people that are doing the virtual option when others are in person. And so for me, I think it's really being inclusive of the person that's not there on site with everyone else. It takes a lot of effort. But I think being aware of that challenge and then really acknowledging it within your team to say, Jane, I know you won't be able to make it in person. That's no problem. You're going to be included in every single thing. We're going to have a video link set up for you. If you can't hear us, you can't see us clearly, there's any type of issue, please let me know immediately. We'll adjust. I think really doing that and just making sure you're acknowledging that the person or the people that are not there in person is really important.
Absolutely. So, we hear from our community that some people feel stuck in their careers in this virtual world. So how do you recommend we all take steps to advance and develop our careers despite these unusual times, Liz?
Yeah. The first thing, you got to accept it. That's like the very first step. It's been difficult even for myself to accept the fact that things look differently now, that things are not the same, that, like the way that it was when you were in person, it was easier to show your work and to like have those conversations and build those relationships. It's not the same, right? With that in mind, it is also a great opportunity that you have. Take advantage of the things that you do have currently in this digital first kind of environment and being in a different world. Because I've had a lot of people within my department that have been able to, job shadow or, see what this other person that in a normal office setting, they would have never,
Mm.
ever had the opportunity to do so because maybe that department was on the, on the other floor or on the other side. We never ran across them. We never worked together. But in this opportunity, you're able to kind of, because everybody's digital, right? Let's just schedule a couple of meetings here and there. And like, let's just, let's show you. So they've had an opportunity to be able, and I've had some people actually move cross-functionally to different places because of this. So that's a great thing. The biggest thing, and I can tell you, I struggled with this quite a lot. In this world, you really have to be able to show your work. You have to be super analytical. You have to be methodical. And you need to learn to love spreadsheets. Sorry, but you do. Because, I was not that person. I'm the person that like loves to speak out in meetings and like can talk to anybody and can talk to everybody, right? But that was not my love and that was not my thing. But I've learned to understand that like every single project that I'm working on now, because I can't pull on Melissa and say, hey, let's come talk about this really quick. I need to be able to show her on a spreadsheet. I need to be able to show her what I've done. I need to be able to be super analytical and look at this report and say this, that, and that's just, it's what it's turned into, right? Because we have to find ways to be able to show our work.
Absolutely. And Siobhan, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I would just add to that we forget there's the option of sometimes of virtual career fairs, which is something that was not as prominent before. So if you're feeling stuck, not just at your particular job, but in your particular position or the company, then you can also look for career opportunities that way. I totally get that now that we're faced to kind of toot our own horn, which is what Liz was saying, rather than having our work seen organically in the office, that can be difficult for some people. So maybe not to the level of a spreadsheet for this one, although I do like the spreadsheet idea. One of the women who's in Super Women with me, which is the employee resource group at Upstart that supports women, she suggested that you start a brag list. And it was something that we used for performance evaluation time, but I think you can also use it, just generally speaking, to ask for opportunities to work on other projects. You have something where you can say, hey, these are the things that I've done well in this area. These skills translate to this project the company has coming up. Can I work on that project? And I think it's a lot easier to ask to be assigned to other stuff if you show a concrete example of how you've done well so far. And then the last thing I would say is when you're in meetings with your team, listen to things other people are working on. And if they need help, you can volunteer to help and that gets you exposed to other stuff. And then also if your company has all company meetings, like Upstart still does, normally the goals for the quarter are discussed at that meeting. See if anything that you're working on aligns with those goals. And if not, then try to get on those projects as well, because those things are very visible. And then your work will be seen by others because you're working on high profile stuff within the company.
Absolutely. I did want to know, how does Upstart support you in managing work-life balance? And Melissa, I'd love for you to take this one quickly.
Yeah, so that's been one of the kind of hallmarks of Upstart since I started before we were remote. It's all about giving employees what they need to be successful in their job, which happens to be work-life balance, right? If you can't weigh your employees down with work, stress, because then they won't be good at work. And so Upstart understands that. It's just part of our culture. It's ingrained in basically everyone. All the new people, if it's not ingrained in them, it becomes quickly ingrained in them because it's just contagious. It's how we operate. We don't tell people to work on weekends. Someone says I'm going to work over the weekend, we're like, are you sure? It's not something that we do. And also before we were remote, I had to drop my daughter off at school. And so I was able to drop my daughter off at school, roll into work late, work during the day, and then go pick up my daughter, and then work from home the rest of the day. Upstart's just very flexible. They understand that happy employees are very productive. So we're lucky on that one.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Melissa. Last question from the audience. What's your recommendation for getting noticed by a company recruiter when being remote versus local candidates? And with that, do you have any advice for someone looking to pursue a career in tech with Upstart specifically?
Well, I can take this one to start with. So with tech, I can speak about the engineering aspect. So I can combine the two a little bit. So with remote versus non-remote, with engineering, it all starts, you get in the door remotely anyway. It's all online. Nothing has really changed there. And now you just have more opportunities because we are looking around the country. We're not looking at any particular place at all. So of course, you have to have a strong resume that stands out to get yourself in the door. But let's just say that you're there and you're going through the interview process. We don't care what your background is. We don't care that if you're self-taught, if you come from a coding boot camp, if you come from a really great college. We don't care. We don't actually even look at that. We evaluate you in an unbiased manner, where we evaluate your skills. So you have to showcase your skills in the interview, and whether you're from Stanford with a master in Stanford engineering or you are self-taught, we don't care. You still need to be able to prove yourself and to also show that you've got these soft skills. Those are very important to us too, and that you're eager and hungry and want to take ownership of part of the product, because we want people to come in that are really going to make a difference and want to own what they do and really contribute. So those are important things that we look for.
Absolutely. And Jennifer, do you have anything to chime in with like 30 seconds on the clock?
For sure, I can do this quick. So the landscape has changed for job seekers, right? So what's really nice is that for the most part, it's an equal playing field no matter where you live. So it's really opened up the door for so many people who previously had to live in the city where their company was located. So take advantage of that. Keep in mind, there are still, even at Upstart, there are roles where you have to be based in a certain city. So make sure you look at that on the job board. Really look for the roles that you're very interested in and apply to the ones where you feel you are best qualified. One last thing I'll say about cover letters, because I get this a lot and this all kind of goes with, applying for jobs. If you're going to include a cover letter, keep it brief, but maybe speak to the things that are not included in your resume, right? So maybe speak a little bit about why you want a career change, why you want a role change, what you're passionate about, why you're passionate about the company that you're applying to. Let that stand out too. Keep it really short. But again, apply for the jobs that you feel you are a good fit for and for the companies that you're really excited about.
I love it. Thank you so much, Melissa, Jennifer, Siobhan, and Liz for joining us today and sharing such fantastic advice. Thanks to everyone who tuned in for the discussion as well. Everyone, we will see you next time. Thanks so much.